Hello, good people. This is going to be a video about the worksheet, chapter 11 and 13, and it's labeled the take-home one on Canvas. And so I think this is the one that probably is the most thorough. So I'm gonna do one video of just this first page, and then so I'll label it video 1 from this, and then video 2 we'll talk about the next couple pages, and there's probably going to be possibly 3 or 4 videos associated with this whole worksheet so that we can break it up a little easier. So this is, it's labeled chapter 11, but it's really not. This is really talking about the interactions of a factorial ANOVA. So this is more chapter 13. So I wanted to spend this one video just talking about graphing interaction terms and what that really means and how to interpret that kind of stuff. So there could be a couple questions on the exam 3 and final exam about this kind of factorial stuff. And so let's go through it together. And so if you think of these, let's just say we're plotting, let's just say the independent variable is like happiness. Okay, so we've got happiness, and so this is, and you can see we've got women in red and men in blue, very sociotypical. And then we've got east, west, and south. So let's say those are the areas of the United States. And so we are doing a study to find out who's happiest, men versus women, or where you live matters, or is it an interaction of if you're a male and a female and where you live? So let's look at this very first option here. So think of these dots are group means. So you're trying to look for differences between means. So if you're looking here, these things are on top of each other. These things are on top of these things are on top of each other. They're all equal. So there's really nothing going on there. So I mean, there's no difference in east, west, or south, and there's no difference between men and women. There's nothing going on here. There's no significant main effect for gender. There's no significant main effect by location. Everything is null retained. There's no difference here. But these following 5 pictures, I want you to sort of think about what it might look like. So if you were just given a picture, could you interpret it? And so this is, I'm telling you how to do this. So what do we got here? We got east. So women are tending to be higher than men compared to all areas of the United States. So women are slightly higher in the east, women are slightly higher in the west, women are slightly higher in the south. But if you were going to try to take the average of the genders by location, so if you're looking for east, west, south, you could say, all right, well, people in the east are less happy than the people in the west, and they're less happy than the south. So there's probably going to be a main effect for location here. So west is probably going to be significantly higher than east or south. And so let's just look at the average for females. Try to take the average of all the females, regardless of where it is. So if you took that average of women, that average of women, you'd end up having an average somewhere probably like right around there. And if you took an average for all men, you'd probably have an average around there. This might not be a significant difference here. That's not very big. That's not a very big kind of thing here. But first and foremost, when you're looking at a picture, you got to figure out if you got a significant interaction first. And I told you in the last video, and even in your book, I think it might have been mentioned, at least I hope it was. If not, Chris is an idiot. We should have talked to you. You should have understood that if you're looking for an interaction, it's typically going to be non-parallel crossing lines. So typically the lines will cross somewhere, and they won't be sort of parallel with each other. Well, these are actually not crossing each other, and they're really not parallel either. So this is probably suggesting probably not going to be an interaction. So if you don't have an interaction, that's when we started talking about main effects. There might be a main effect by gender here. Women might be slightly higher across all areas compared to men across all areas. So I mean, that difference might be a big difference or not. But this is probably, I mean, again, if you're trying to collapse just location, these things are probably going to be a significant difference, because west is going to be higher than east and south. So we're probably going to see a main effect by location, maybe not by gender, but definitely not an interaction. Let's go down here to this one. So you can see men are consistently higher than women across all areas. So first and foremost, look and see if you got an interaction. they're entirely parallel. They're not crossing whatsoever. So you're probably thinking to yourself, all right, probably not an interaction. All right, so if you don't have an interaction, let's look for main effects. If you averaged all the men and you average all the women, you might see a main effect there. This difference between an average of all men and the average of all women might be significantly different. But then so there could be one for gender there. So let's try to collapse by area. So this is where East would fit. And where am I getting these dots? I'm getting these dots because I'm taking the average of these two big dots. So here are all the men, here are all the women. If I average all the men and women together, you'd have a big dot right in the middle. Same thing with this. Big dot right in the middle, big dot right in the middle. There's absolutely no main effect by location. Everyone in East, West, and South are basically the same. So let's look at this one. Do we see a significant interaction? Will they cross? I mean, they're on top of each other. I wouldn't say that they're crossing, but they're on top of each other. All right, but they're parallel with each other. They're on top of each other. They're not really crossing. So probably odds are this is not going to be an interaction. So let's look for main effects. Well, men and women, they're basically the same. So there's not going to be one for men and women. But we got something very similar to this other one up here. West average is probably going to be significantly different from the East and the South average. So you're probably going to see another similar kind of main effect like this, where West is always higher than East and South. So you probably would see a main effect here by location, but nothing for gender. All right, let's look at this one right here. This very last one here. This is huge. I mean, this is classic interaction. I think we talked about this is in your textbook. So we've got crossing. So if they cross, interaction, like I said before, interaction, you find a significant interaction, stop, just interpret the interaction, don't worry about main effects. So what I need you to do is and when it comes time to interpret a significant interaction, what do you need to tell me? You just need to tell me, we found a significant interaction between these two variables, p is equal to blah, blah, blah. Such that, and just describe to me what's going on here. And in words, and it's fine. Just write sentences. It's gonna be fine. So how would you explain this? Was what I'm trying to get at. So if you want to try to figure out how to do this, pause this video or whatever. But try to figure out how you would explain this. So I'm going to explain it right now. So what's going on here? If you're a male in the East, you're not doing so hot. But if you're a male in the South, you're doing pretty good, at least compared to females here in the South. Whereas if you're a female in the East, you're rocking the East. But if you're a male or female in the West, there's not a whole lot of stuff going on here. So what does that mean? When it comes to happiness, can you tell me if you should be a male or female? I can't, because it depends on where you live. Because I could say, well, if you're a male, you should be in the South. Or, I'm sorry, if you said, well, if I want to maximize happiness, I should be a male. Well, that's not true. That's true in the South. It's not true in the East. Over here, if this was the situation, I could say, yes, being a male is best. Over here, I could say being a female is best, regardless of location. But here, I can't say that. All right, well, then you say, all right, well, does living in the East awesome? Well, let's take the average of the East. Average of the East is right there. Average of the South is right there. Can I say, I think being in the East or the West or the South is awesome? No, I can't say that either. Can I say that here? Can I say that here? Yes, I can make that statement. I can say being in the West is much better. I can see being in the West is much better. Here, I can't say living in a certain place is going to have happiness. So does that mean you just stop? That's why you look for interaction. You can't just stop. You're like, all right, well, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, but it doesn't matter where you live either. No, it very much matters. It matters on both. That's the key word when it comes in here. It's the both. It matters not only your gender, but also where you live, such that if you're a male and you want to maximize happiness, go live in the South. If you live in the West, it doesn't matter if you're a male or female, and you've got a kind of a moderate level of happiness. But if you're in the East, man, you do not want to be a male in the East. That's the lowest. Whereas if you are a female, see, it's like an if-then clause. If female and East, and both, highest. If female and South, lowest, bad. That's what I'm talking about with interaction. It's both. All right, so this is the classic interaction. No main effects on either case. Let's look at this one over here. So these lines do not cross, but they are not parallel to each other. So this would be an interaction. So if I give this to you, if I just give you the picture, you should start thinking to yourself, well, this is probably interaction. If you had the actual data with you, you'd be able to see the p-values and see what's going on there. But let's take a look at this. So you should probably be thinking interaction. So what does this mean? It's an and. It's a if and kind of situation. So if you're a male and a female in the East, not a whole lot of difference. If you're a male and female in the West, male or female in the West, not a whole lot of difference. But being a male or female in the South does make a huge difference. All right, so what's going on here is that, do I want to be a male? Well, no, yes, it depends. That's really the question. Answer is, do I want to be a male? If I'm a male, I want to be in the West. If and West. If I'm a female, I kind of want to be in the South. So if female and South maximize, but when it comes to a male, ooh, I do not want to be in the South either. And this is the biggest discrepancy what's going on here. So what does that mean? If you were going to interpret this, what does this mean? It means your happiness depends not only on where you live, but also your gender, such that if you are gender and location does not seem to have a huge impact if you live in the East and you're a male or a female. In the West, male or female, not a whole lot of difference, but it is higher than the East. So location is going to improve when it comes if you're in the West relative to the East. But when you go to the South, this is where things separate. If you're a female, you have really, really high happiness, but if you're a male, you have lower happiness such that you're almost like a male in the East. That's how you interpret it. Don't be afraid to write sentences. It doesn't have to be statistical jargon. The only statistical jargon that you need when it comes to an interaction, when you're when you're interpreting interaction, is when you start with that main thing. I reject the null hypothesis. There is a significant interaction. P is less than blah, blah, blah. Such that then go ahead and start reading or writing your sentences and explaining it in normal language, that kind of stuff. That's all I'm looking for from you. So again, if you're having some trouble with that, please rewatch that. Send me any of your questions. So this is just the first video of this particular worksheet. The next video will be over the next 2 pages. Good luck. Thanks.